Hi, and welcome back to Yairn. This is my creative roundup of everything that I've made this month. My name's Fiona, and I'm a Scottish American designer living in the Scottish Highlands. If you watched my last video and subscribed, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're here. This month, I want to get started with my knitting projects. So first up is my Roma cardigan. I got to a point on the back yoke where I thought I had done the correct number of stitches. And so I inserted a lifeline and pulled my circular needles through. It turns out that I was not counting the stitches in quite the correct way because it's a slipped stockinette. So there's slip stitches and then there's knit stitches in columns. And so I was confused by the pattern. In a way, it was telling me to do a certain number of stitches, but really it was a certain number of sets. So anyways, I've discovered now that I haven't completed enough stitches along the back yoke, but that's fine. That's easily rectified. And I'm hoping that when I put my needles back in through where I currently have the lifeline, I won't end up with a ridge there. So if anyone has any experience with having this same issue, I would love to hear from you. But since then, I have started to build out the front panel. It will become the front left panel of the cardigan. So I was able to pick up the stitches, see if I can get that into focus, pick up the stitches along there, and I think that's blended in really beautifully. The one thing I have also noticed is that my increases on the back yoke mean that this kind of set seems quite tight. So I'm interested in blocking this and seeing if that's going to be an issue. I'm also curious if that's a common concern or problem that happens with these types of constructions. I just don't know quite enough to know if that's the case. Overall, I'm incredibly happy with how this is turning out. I think the stitch pattern is beautiful. Maybe you can see there the kind of variation in the slipped and knit. You can kind of get a picture as to why the counting of the rows was rather difficult for me. So yeah, so next up will be to pick up stitches along this side of the back yoke and to build the front right panel. And then from there, as I mentioned last time, you join under the armpits and then you continue to work your way down. And I think once I get to that point, it'll be really speedy and fun. So I'm looking forward to that section. Next up, we can talk about my sweater number 28 by Daisy and Peace. I'm very happy to say that I have the back panel mostly done, I think almost entirely done. And I'm very, very happy with how it's turned out. I think the stitching, the fisherman's rib is gorgeous. And this yarn is just so soft and pliable. I think this is just going to drape beautifully when it's completed. So, and you can see there, I mentioned last time the kind of little wispy bits that are coming off the sweater. And I was kind of concerned that that was going to be a little bit itchy, but when I drape it across my arms and I sit with it, it really doesn't cause any problems. It's not itchy at all. It's just feels very soft and lovely and dreamy. Super excited with that. The weather is a bit nicer here now, so I'm kind of putting this one on the back burner for my other projects. I think the cardigan is going to be more wearable for the next few months because it still gets quite chilly here, but a sweater like this that's quite thick might not be as useful. So probably going to put this one on hold for just a little bit. One thing I did earlier this month was I took an intro to Fair Isle knitting course with Sophie from Forest and Dot. She's really amazing. She runs courses all over the northeast of Scotland, mainly knitting and crochet. This particular course that I took was to just kind of learn the basics of Fair Isle knitting, learn a little bit about the history, and to learn about what types of yarns to use. In my piece that I worked on, I used Shetland wool in a beautiful green color and a kind of yellow color. So this is the headband that I worked on. And you can see it has a very beautiful floral pattern. Also kind of looks like butterflies to me. And this was so fun to work on. This is what the inside looks like. Take away some of these threads. The process was super interesting to learn. I'd never done any type of color work before. And I was, a little bit nervous about giving it a try. But in the end, I really enjoyed it. And it was kind of more simple than the end product leads you to believe. So I was really happy about that. It's given me a lot of confidence and desire to try other color work projects. So that's definitely something that you'll see from me in the future. And yeah, really, really enjoyed the course. Sophie was very knowledgeable and incredibly kind. I highly recommend checking out her offerings this year. Since the weather is a little bit nicer, I've been getting more and more excited about sewing projects. I completed the Heath jumpsuit by Nude, which is a free sewing pattern. I've purchased a few jumpsuits like this in the past from an amazing store in San Francisco, which I think is called New Work, spelled N-O-O. I hope I got that right. If not, I'll link them in the description and put up a photo here. But I absolutely love those jumpsuits. They're so fun. They do some amazing artist collaborations and have some incredible fabrics. So if you're in California and you want a really fun jumpsuit, I highly recommend. But since living in Scotland, I didn't have access to that. And I wanted to make a jumpsuit that reminded me of the one that I had from them. And this pattern was free, which is amazing. I did do a couple modifications. Instead of the short sleeves, I went ahead and made long sleeves. I also wanted a really clean look, so I removed the front pockets from the pattern. Other than that, I followed the pattern to a T, and I think it came out really beautiful, fits really nicely, and is really, really comfortable. So if you're interested in making a jumpsuit, I do recommend this pattern. The only thing I will say is that there wasn't a lot of ease in the pattern, so it did come out pretty form-fitting. I think in the future I might size up and just get a little extra wiggle room. First dress that I want to talk about that I'm planning to make is called the Teddy Dress by My Keeper. And it's this super, super adorable form-fitting dress that has lace-up tie sides. So it's going to be a little bit forgiving, and you can kind of loosen it up or tighten it up depending on the silhouette that you want and maybe how you're feeling that day. So for this dress, I have this really stunning orange and white cotton gingham. And I didn't plan to make a dress named after my dog in the same colors that my dog is, but it is kind of fun. I love it. So I'll be making a teddy dress in teddy colors. So I'm really excited for that one. I can't wait to get that one cut out. It's a dress that's made in kind of a panel construction. So a little bit like princess seams, if you've ever heard of that. But I think it's got 2 side panels, and then it's got 2 thin front side and back side panels. So 4 of those thinner panels, and then it's got a front and a back. And the lacy bits are from the underarm to the waist, or maybe to the hips on the side panels. And then there's a long skirt. I'm sure you can adjust the height of the skirt. And I do know that there is a scoop neck and a high neck version. So I'm fairly sure I'm going to do the high neck version just because I've got some larger ladies and I don't like to be too ostentatious. So I prefer a bit more coverage. So yes, super excited about this. My second sewing project I want to talk about is going to be my first designer dupe. So my plan is to make a Damson Madder Becca Bubble Dress, but in a midi length. And I'm going to use this gorgeous 100% wool, orange base, teal, and lilac fabric that I picked up from King Craig Fabrics in Aurora. This fabric I think is going to be great because it's not itchy at all, but it will have a nice structure to it. I don't plan on lining it. I do plan on doing the detachable puff sleeves. So I'm really excited for how this one is going to go. It's going to be my first ever attempt at shearing. And I love that technique because it fluctuates with the body. And we all know that women's bodies change throughout the year, month by month. And I think that's really freeing to be able to have a technique that's going to fluctuate with your body the way that it naturally changes. And all bodies are beautiful. So I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. So moving into spinning, I purchased some white roving from a local yarn shop, which looked a little bit like this, but more chunky. And then I went ahead and spun that up. And so that started to look like this, which I think is an improvement on my spinning from last month. And I went ahead and started to knit up what I had spun. So this is that. Hopefully you can see that. So you can see there is a lot of variation in the kind of thickness of the yarn, but I think that is quite beautiful. I love the variation. I love the kind of artistic quality of it. So I was really, really happy with that. And then earlier this month, I went down to Fife, where my parents live, to visit them. And we went to the Bow House Market, which if you haven't been to that, it's really an incredible venue. And they have really beautiful markets with lots of amazing food and craft stalls and demonstrations in farming, various things. They do organic production, food and meat. And they were doing a sheet shearing demonstration while I was there. They had some black Shetland sheep that they were shearing. And my husband very kindly spoke to the man and asked if I could have any of the fleeces, which was amazing. And so I walked away from that with 3 Shetland fleeces. So I have processed one of the fleeces. So I took it out to a big outdoor bath that we have, filled that up with water, and I let that soak for 15-20 minutes just to get kind of the initial wash of dirt out. And then from there, I did that probably about 4 or 5 times, just to kind of get all the initial dirt and crud out of there. And then I moved the entire fleece out onto the lawn, let that dry, and then took a smaller section of the fleece and did a more of a cleaning kind of wash. So I put it into a smaller bucket and I put it in with not hot water. You never want to use hot water, but I used kind of lukewarm water with a touch of soap and very, very gently submerge that fleece, being very careful not to agitate it because you don't want to felt any of the fibers. And this is what I ended up with. So this is the cleaned fleece there. And from there, I did some hand carding. And so this is what it starts to look like after carding. So you can see there it is. The fibers kind of blend and it gets a gray color, gray brown. Just think these kind of caramel tips are really beautiful. That kind of gets blended in. So this is what I've spun up so far. You still get some touches of that beautiful caramel color. It has a really, really rich charcoal gray brown color. The interesting thing about this fleece is that it is spinning up so much thinner than my white roving was. So it's probably too thin really for the camera to pick up on, but I'm really, really curious to see kind of what this yarn ends up being like. If I do a little bit of a twisted section, you might be able to see that. So it's looking like maybe a DK weight yarn. I'm not entirely sure. So this is just a tiny little section that I've been able to spin up so far. So I will get this off of the bobbin and do my same kind of experimental swatch and see what it's looking like and see if I still have that texture that I really was loving from the previous merino wool that I spun up. All I have for this month. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'm really looking forward to sharing what I get into in July. Thanks so much. Have a great day.